Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Lost to the Rabbit Hole. Tonight we have Dennis joining us, and we're going to talk about all sorts of things, but werewolves and vampires especially. I'm excited. Welcome.
Hello. Good to be here, Josh.
Awesome to have you. Last time you were on, we had a little bit of an echo, so I couldn't really talk, and you took the center stage for me. Thank you again for doing that. But we got all the bugs worked out this time.
Good. That's good. I do a lot of podcasting myself, and that's kind of par for the course. We always have a lot of technical stuff going on, whether it's good or bad. Most of
Yeah.
the time it's stuff, but that's the way it goes.
I was joking. We actually had that same issue this past week on Dark Mirror Radio, and I was joking that we should all as podcasters should invest in roadies.
That's what I've said a lot. We've talked about that on other podcasts. Sometimes it seems some of the subject matter that you're involved in, weird things begin to happen. I know, especially when I talk about demonology and stuff like that. It seems to be part of the course that technical difficulties will kind of spring up when you breach certain subjects like that. You have to wonder if maybe certain things out there don't want you to talk about them.
Right. We've had it with government times too on a couple of
Oh
shows
yeah.
where we get in. Yeah. And there's times where your feed would just cut out, just be gone. No more live.
Yeah, I've done some actually. I was talking to somebody about that the other day. I've actually done some Bigfoot hunts and stuff like that. A lot of cryptid hunts that I've gone on. Actually, I've had government interference with them. We've had government vans show up, drones, agents that were in the neighborhood. It was weird stuff, and you kind of, and I've gotten to the point where when I go on investigations like that, I kind of look for that to happen sometimes because
Hmm.
there definitely a lot of government interest in a lot of the things that we do, and we don't realize it. There's more of it than we really truly understand that's going on in the background.
I
I
think
think that
I
I contacted years ago by the CIA, and it was a legitimate contact, and he said he was asking me nothing but like demonology questions, you know,
really.
because I hear you know a lot about demonology, and he's ask me these questions, and I'm sitting there thinking, why in the world are you asking me this? Why are you so interested in these things? And it kind of dawned on me, maybe they're dabbling in it themselves. Maybe they have opened some doors they shouldn't have opened or something. But he said
It's
something
pretty
very interesting
cool.
at the interview. He offered me a job. He said, how would you like to work with us? You know, uh, we're looking for people with supernatural talents. And I'm thinking, who have you got working for you? Who's employed? And I kind of turned him down. I said, no thanks. Because I heard a long time ago that most of the time retirement plan for the CIA was through the morgue. So I didn't really want to go that route. But
Right.
was interesting. Yeah, it was very interesting. But it kind of opened my eyes at that time. This was many years ago. I thought, God, if they're this interested in this stuff, how deep are they into it? And I found out as time went on, they were very, very deep in it.
Yeah, they would have made you fill out dossiers too, and you wouldn't be able to podcast with us.
Yeah. Well, the government's always been good at weaponizing things. Whenever
Yeah.
they see something, a dolphin or a housefly or whatever it is, they don't think about it being that. So, well, how can we weaponize that? How can we use that as a weapon? How can we use it? And so that's the way. That's kind of the avenue the government's coming from. And somebody asked me that the other day. Do you think that they actually use Bigfoot? Do they use, Dogman? Do they use werewolves and vampires and that? I said, without a
Yeah,
doubt, I'm
I
sure
think
they
so.
do. Yeah, yeah.
Um, What's your thoughts on that apparent weapon that was used in Venezuela? I mean, I guess I'll say it because of the name of my show, Through the Rabbit Hole, everybody was talking about that Maduro's men apparently couldn't even fight back because they heard a signal that made them bleed through every orifice.
Oh yeah, so I remember what the president said right after that. He said, "We have weapons that you don't know about," and they
Mm.
definitely do. Uh, and here's one thing you got to remember, Josh, when you think about the government and the technology that you and I have in the public sector right now. They have in their technology is at least 100 years or more advanced
Oh
than what
yeah,
we have. Oh, without a
they
doubt.
opened
And
they
there's
opened to
so
say
many.
10 years, but it's
There's been
definitely more or less what you said, 100.
yeah, at least 100, if not more. Uh, but we've talked a lot about energy weapons that they may have and things like that. And they definitely have sound weapons. And there's even talk of psychic weapons that can be used. And I know a lot of people who are into remote viewing and stuff. And they have been some, I had a friend that does it, and she told me that she reached a certain point where you're looking into things and remote viewing, and all of a sudden you run into a wall of something that's keeping you from going in there. And then she said it's probably other remote viewers. They have
Yeah,
people
I've
working
heard
for them.
that. A lot of
Yeah, they
celebrities
do.
do that too, where they have like paid people to actually put up this barrier constantly so you can't remote view them. And the government's, of course, got ones,
Oh yeah,
under their theaters, areas you can't
psychics.
get through.
If you could, like with psychic powers like telekinesis or something, you could actually reverse the chemical reaction in someone's brain. You could kill that person instantly without ever touching
Wow.
them. It would and make it look like an aneurysm or something like that.
Wow. That's wild.
But we've talked about that before. That I've done some shows on it. That actually, when they're what I call witch wars, there are a lot of times when, although certain cults like witch cults, vampire cults, werewolf cults, etc., they usually get along, but sometimes they have problems with each other, and they will send out sometimes assassins to wipe out or take out certain people, and the best assassins are definitely werewolves. You would not want that coming after you under any circumstances, especially if that was one of your enemies could conjure up a werewolf for you. Um, if you had a werewolf on your trail like that, they are apex killers. They are psychotic killers, because once they get on your trail, they will not stop until they get you. That's just the way they work. And I would definitely not want one on my trail for that thing. And I told somebody the other day during an interview, I said, there's not a whole lot of eyewitness reports of werewolves, and there's a reason why, because nobody ever lives to give them. You know.
Would you be willing to share your werewolf hunt or experience with us?
Oh, well, I had one very interesting years ago that I was thinking about the other day. It was very interesting. It happened in the mountains of North Carolina. And I was with two Cherokee brothers. They were really great trackers. They were great animal trackers. And all day long, we had been, I think it was in the fall of the year, if I remember correctly, we had been after our prey, a quarry that we were trying to track was what we call the Wampus cat. Now, the Wampus cat is a cryptid that's supposedly like a monster um, cougar with 6 legs. Okay. And this is what they told me was in the vicinity of this area. And that's what we were basically looking for. And something, Josh, we had been trailing something all day, but we couldn't figure out what he was. And he stayed just ahead of us. And it was like playing a game with us, like a cat and mouse kind of thing going on. And we couldn't figure out what he was, and we couldn't get tracks. We could never get a clear line of tracks to tell us exactly what it was, that was ahead of us there. But there was one instance during this hunt, and I was away from the two brothers. They were on up the trail or something, and I walked off the trail and was looking around. and I saw something standing in the trees down in a hollow like. And it was getting kind. It was late in the day. It was good, It was not. It was sort of an overcast day. I remember that. There was no bright sunshine on it, and it was late in the day. And there had been like thunderstorms all around us all day, but none had gotten really close. But it was kind of cloudy. I remember that. And in the distance, I can remember seeing lightning. Playing around in the mountains. Anyway, I was looking down this hollow of the trees, and I saw something standing there. And I could not make it out because, like I said, it was in the darkness of the trees. I couldn't get a clear look at it, but I could see the silhouette of it. And honest to God, it looked like the silhouette of a German Shepherd or something that was just standing in the shadows, like. And I could see these ears and the snout to it. And I've had a lot of people over the years, you probably saw a skinny bear or something. Well, bears do not get that skinny because if they're that skinny, they're usually dead bears. They're not. They're probably decaying bears. This thing was standing there, and it was standing there like a man. Okay. Now a bear will stand up like that, but when they stand up, they're always kind of humped over. I've seen bears. I've met a lot of bears in the woods. Okay, over the years. And they will walk like a person, but they do not walk with the stride of a person. Okay, they have a different way of moving. This thing standing there was not like a bear. It was not only not a bear. I could tell that right off. I said, "What is that?" I just said to myself, "What is that?" And it was like sniffing the air. It was kind of looking around. And I think the only reason why I'm here live to tell you this story is it did not see me. I could see it, but it didn't see me. So it finally just kind of melted back into the shadows, and I left. I didn't say anything to the brothers about it. I said, well, I don't know what it was. I couldn't say for sure. I couldn't say 100% what it was, but it was very odd, very strange looking. And it made me think of something like a werewolf or dog man type thing. That's what it made me think about. And I didn't say anything to them. And later on during the hunt, as the day went on, we finally got some tracks down by a muddy stream that was very close there. Finally got a track line, and the two brothers were talking. They were up ahead of me, and I was behind them a little while around. We could see these tracks, and they were very strange looking tracks. And I couldn't make out what they was. I said they looked like kind of like dog tracks, but they were longer than dog tracks, or like wolf tracks or coyotes. Now at this time that this happened in the mountains of North Carolina, there were no wolves around. I mean, there had once been long years ago wolves, and all of them were killed out and all that. But they have since reintroduced wolves in certain areas of the mountains, but there were none at that time. Okay, and I'm thinking this is either some kind of strange dog, or what this is here. And sometimes when you see an animal, it will step in its own tracks. And you got to be careful how you track that, animal, because the tracks can look different when it steps in its own track, But this is definitely not what it was doing. I could tell that, and it was a longer track. So the brothers were very interested in this, and it was, and like I said, it was getting late in the day. It was getting towards twilight. Storm was coming in now. I mean, it was getting lightning. You could feel that stillness in the air before a storm. And I'm thinking, God, we don't have much time here, We finally got a long line of tracks down by this thing. We got the spotty tracks, and then finally got a line, The line tells you more than just, spotty tracks. And we're walking along, and I said to one of the brothers, I said, this is something strange. There's something wrong with these tracks. And he said, yes, it is. He said, it started back there on 4 legs. And now it's on 2 legs up here. And this was not bear tracks, okay? And I mean, all of us knew a bear track very well, just like like a deer track or a bobcat track or whatever. This was not that. And he said, I don't understand that, how he went from 4 legs to 2 legs, And they were talking to each other in Cherokee. They were saying something, And finally, I walked up behind him. I said, "What did he say?" And the older brother turned to me and said, "Look, the hunt's over. We did not sign on to track no damn werewolf out here."
I believe you. I actually had a guest that lived in Spokane on the reservation, and he had an experience that attacked his Jeep, and
Mhm.
he told me special guys on the tribe came to him, took his story, and went and dealt with it. That how the reservation they have their own. They pretty much call themselves to like the public that they're medicine men, but they just deal solely with like evil spirits and werewolves and the other
Yeah,
nasty stuff
they
around.
they look upon things like that, Josh, more in a spiritual way than we do in
Yeah.
many aspects. What I like about the indigenous peoples, they have a very spiritual connection to things, and but they knew what they were looking at, and that's what they were telling me. Hey, we're not in, we're not going to do this. And it would not be a good idea to actually hunt a werewolf. Okay, you would not definitely
No.
want to find it that way. And that's what I tell a lot of people. I've been a monster hunter from way back, many years, and I said that you if you're gonna hunt monsters, you got to have a plan in place for if you find them. You know what you're gonna do because
Right.
you may be taking on your hands. Yeah, definitely. That's kind of one of the rules of monster hunting, matter of fact, I wrote the 10 Commandments of monster hunting, and one of the main rules is the hunter should never become the hunted. It's
Right.
never. It's not a good idea. Yeah,
Agreed. Do
but a
you
werewolf
think
would
this
definitely
is?
be an ape. A werewolf would. I've had people ask me, say, "Could you tell the difference between a dog man and a
I was just gonna
werewolf?"
ask that.
Yeah. Well, the dog man is dog man 24/7. All the time. The werewolf, on the other hand, could be your next door neighbor. He could be the
Hmm.
boy that bags your groceries at the supermarket. He could be anybody. He could be somebody you know. Just until he transforms into the werewolf that he is. Now, here's the bad thing about that. There are different types of werewolves, just as there are different types of vampires.
Hmm.
There are people who want to become werewolves. I've actually had people come to me over the years. Can you tell me, Dr. Carroll, how can I can become a werewolf? I said, yeah, but I'm not going to because I don't want your blood on my hands, okay? Because if you go that route and try to become something like that, you are hooking up with great demonic power, very dark, evil stuff, and it will eat your soul.
I
That's what it. Yeah, it will
I
eat you
heard
up alive.
you have to
It
do
will
some
take your
pretty horrendous things to get there to do that as well.
yeah. It requires a very distinct price from you to do that. And the price is your soul and your humanity. The more you turn into a werewolf, vampire, whatever shape shifting thing you're going into, every time you come back from that, you lose a little bit of your humanity, of what you are. Okay. And eventually you do it so many times and go so deep into it that you will not come back from it. There may be dog men out there that they're seeing that are really werewolves that cannot transfer back into being humans anymore.
Because they lost their
That's the
humanity.
That's the possibility you run into. But let me say this about the dog man. The dog man, the big difference between the dog man and the werewolf, the dog man will probably cut you a break. Most people talk about seeing him and having that encounter, and they live to tell about it. Like I said a few minutes ago, the werewolf, you will not probably live to tell about it because he's not going to let you go. He's not going to cut you a break. He's going to tear you into little pieces and then just eat you for the heck of it. Okay. That's just the way he operates. If I were to see two cases of mutilations like that, and I see one case where somebody just maybe gets their throat ripped out or they get killed that way, I would say that might be the work of a dog man. But if I find a body that's torn to pieces, mutilated beyond recognition, that's a werewolf. That's what he does. You know. So that tells you what the differences are in the way these things are. But I have seen a lot of evidence, Josh, over the years that there is definitely a dark, very dark connection to dogman, much less werewolves, But there are different types of werewolves. There are werewolves, people who want to become werewolves, and then people who are cursed by werewolves. The werewolf thing. It can be a family curse. passed down through the line, or it can be a curse put on them by some type of dark witchcraft spell. Whatever the situation, there are some people that do not want to transform into werewolves, but unfortunately they do. But then you have some people who want to do that, and they are definitely some of the most evil people walking this planet. Absolutely.
Which is worse, do you think, the vampires or the werewolves? Which is the more formidable?
Well, a vampire is more like a lifestyle that absolutely takes over you. If you become a vampire, and there are different types of vampires, there are living dead vampires, there are demonically reanimated vampires, there are human vampires, people who want to become vampires. There are kids playing around with the vampire thing, like goth kids doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little vampire societies they have, and they think it's real cool to look like vampires and have fake fangs and all that stuff. But then you got the real guys that they are very serious about what they're doing. You've got real vampire cults out there, and they are very dangerous because of two reasons. One, you are nothing but cattle to them, basically. If you're not one of them, then you're very low on the totem pole of them, okay? They don't consider you very much of anything except a food source. And the other thing that makes them dangerous is they protect their secrecy, very much so, because they operate and live in that secrecy. That's what keeps them alive and lets them survive. If you jeopardize that secrecy, you jeopardize their survival, they will take you out very quickly. That's going to be it. But they also have a class of people that help them. They are called handlers. These people they work for the vampires. They are servants of the vampires, however you want to say it.
Basically,
these handlers them, they guard them, they make sure they have a blood supply and all that. And they do it for different reasons. They can either be like under the control of that vampire, or they are getting something from that vampire. Maybe they get to indulge in some type of fantasies that they want. Whatever the situation is, there's a trade-off going on probably with it. You're getting into a very dark and evil kind of society here when you get into vampirism in its stages. But then you've got, and I've had a lot of cases with what I call demonic vampires. These are vampire spirits that can attach to you and drain the life out of you. I had one case that actually involved voodoo and vampirism, where this one woman and her husband, they were dog groomers, and they lived in this neighborhood, nice, quiet little neighborhood, and they owned two houses in this neighborhood. One house they did their dog grooming business in, and the other house they lived in. And this woman, one day, her and her husband, they didn't have any kids or anything. Very good Christian couple. They're very nice people. And one day they found out that this Mama Loa had moved in the neighborhood across the street from them. Now, Mama Loa is a voodoo priestess, okay? And she moved in the neighborhood, and she came over there to see this woman, the dog grooming woman. And she brought a black vial of black liquid. She said, "Here, honey, you take this and leave it in your house, and you'll have good luck, and it'll bring money in for you and all this stuff, And the woman foolishly took it, unfortunately. And I will warn everybody listening tonight, be very, very careful what you take in this life, because once you take it, it belongs to you, no matter what you believe, okay? And that's what happens when they cast spells and do hexes and stuff on people. If they give you some, that's why your mother and father always taught you not to take things from strangers. Okay, there's a reason why. And but she foolishly took this. And the moment she took this thing, the woman left. The voodoo woman left and went back home. The moment this woman took this, says weird things began to happen in her house. Noises, weird things. She said, and she told me, she said, Dr. Carroll, from that day on to this day, said I used to could do 10 dogs a day, and it got to the point where I could only do about 2 or 3 dogs a day. I was so exhausted every day. The life was just getting drained out of me. And she said that, I went to the doctors, they checked me out. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not anemic. There's nothing wrong with me. Why I should be feeling like this? She said, I just can't even hardly get out of bed every morning. When I heard this, bed flag, I thought, yeah, that sounds like a vampire spirit, And that's when she told me about the black liquid. I said, well, where's that? Where's it at? So I threw it away. I said, I wish you hadn't done that. We could have done something with it. But anyway, I knew what had happened. This woman, this voodoo woman, had put some type of a vampire spirit on this woman. And so I told her what would have to do. Would have to do to free her from this, and also I would have to cleanse their house as well, because this thing was, put in her house just about as much as it was put in her. It was also in her location. It did not affect her husband like it did her, because she's the one that took the vial. And anyway, I went ahead and did. And I was starting down in the basement, Josh. Before I could even throw the holy water, I had another guy with me. I started down in the basement, and all of a sudden, this force hit us coming up the stairs of the basement. It like to knock us both down. I didn't see the shadow. The guy with me saw the shadow go by, but I felt the force of this thing. And as it went by us, before I could even throw out the holy water and begin, okay, this force went by us. And upstairs, I hear this loud bam, bad noise, big noise. I knew what happened when I heard that, because most of the time when you cast demon spirits out of a place or situations like that, they never leave in a good way. They will make a noise, they'll knock something over, they'll break something on the way out or whatever, or they'll scream or something. They never go out in a good way. And this thing was getting the heck out of Dodge in a real big hurry. And I went back upstairs and we got through down there. And I said, that woman said, what was that noise? I said, I know. What, did you hear it up here? She said, yeah, what was it? I said, well, that was your problem leaving. Okay, that was it. But she got freed from that thing that minute that happened, and didn't have any more problem. And the voodoo, now here's the thing about it, the voodoo woman, the Mama Loa, moved out of the neighborhood the next week and left. And I knew why that happened, because if they do cast spells or hexes or what, a curse on people, and I've had curses put on me, when they cast a curse on someone, if it doesn't work, it bounces back on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why the Mama Loa left the neighborhood. But they said that after she left, that they went in that house and there was all kind of, symbols and marks painted all over the walls inside that house and everything. So she was definitely a dark Mama Loa. She was out to cause as much problem as possible.
She's definitely using voodoo, not hoodoo, then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Hoodoo is the one that's like the light side of it, right?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of connections with vampires and voodoo. It goes back to Africa, from which voodoo actually sprang. You have a lot of that with the witch doctors and stuff in Africa. They can call.
That's where the word zombie comes from too, I believe.
Yeah, there's one, I can't think of its name. I think it's called a tuka. That a witch doctor can call the spirit up to harass you, make life bad for you, definitely. And they have these powers, and it's completely directly tied to voodoo in many instances. So so it's a good idea if you run into a situation like that. And I came into that case by being contacted by another paranormal group. They had contacted me, said, we know you know about voodoo, and we don't know anything about voodoo, and we want you to see what's going on with this lady. And I said, oh, sure, I'd help her out. But when they do cast these spells, and I warn people about it, they will have to leave something on your property or in your possession. Like she took that vial, they have to leave something like that. And if you can find that and destroy it the correct way, you can break the spell. Okay, you can break the curse or whatever. But if if you don't, and that's why I warn people, if you've got some enemies you think are into witchcraft, or somebody that doesn't like you that's into witchcraft, be sure to check your belongings in your house every now and then to make sure there's nothing there that should be there. Because that's the way. And of course, they can do this by putting stuff in your food too. That's why I say it's very, very important to be careful, what you take from people. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Any other vampires you want to cover?
Well, I've had a lot of vampire cases over the years.
That's awesome.
That was the distinct one I had one time. That was a very, very strange incident where I think I actually met and shook hands with a real vampire. This happened in Charleston, South Carolina, which I've done a lot of investigations in Charleston, a very old city. It's called the Holy City because it has so many churches inside the city limits. And I was actually in one of these churches, very old churches. I mean, the tombs and stuff go back to the 16th century in some areas there. And I had been in this cemetery that day. What it was, I'm a big history buff too, and I was looking for the grave of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. He was buried in that, and I did find him. I found his marker. He had a very small little marker. You would think they'd have a bigger marker, somebody that signed the Declaration. But anyway, I finally did find him. I'd been in that cemetery. I love to go in cemeteries. They're very interesting. They're very much like pages out of a history book in some ways, you know.
I used to do that all the time when I was younger. We used to even do like engravings where you just take a piece of paper and with a older one.
You know, fascinating stuff. So I've been walking around this very old cemetery, and it was I remember the day was it might have been late in the year. It wasn't winter yet, I don't think, but it had been an overcast day. It was I remember that, and it was the fall. It was definitely fall of the year because there was not a lot of leaves on the trees. And I've been walking around looking at the different graves, and I was about to leave, and I hear a voice behind me. This woman says, I hear a woman's voice. She said, "Do you like graveyards?" You know, and I turn around, and there's this young girl there. She's probably, I'd say maybe early mid-20s, something like that. Very pretty girl, kind of long black hair. She was kind of pale, like, and the thing that struck me right off, I never did look her in the eyes, and I usually do that. And when I talk to somebody, I usually look them in the eyes. I don't know why I didn't that day. Might be a good reason why I didn't, but I didn't look her in the eyes today. And she kind of put her hand out, and I shook her hand. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" or something, and she told me her name was Emily Lee or something like that. And honest to God, it felt like shaking hands with a dead person. Her hand was so cold and just felt dead, like, and I didn't think I thought that right off bat. Well, maybe there's something wrong with her. Maybe she's got some kind of thyroid condition or something going on. I didn't think a whole lot about it. I kind of just brushed it off, but it was a very weird feeling, and I noticed there's kind of something odd about her. I mean, you just get that feeling that something was not right here, and I noticed she was dressed kind of strangely, partly like modern and partly like old fashioned dress. She like had a bodice like on, and her dress might have been like a plain shift or something. It was sort of just a mixture of modern and old kind of stuff, And I thought that's kind of strange. Maybe that's just the way, maybe maybe her parents were hippies or something.
Right.
Very strange. And yeah, so that was the first thing. That was one of the first things I noticed about her. And she said, and I said, "Yeah," I said, I find graveyards and cemeteries fascinating places." And she said, "I do too." She said, "I live here, And I said, "Oh, really? You come here a lot?" She said, "No, I live here. I'm buried here." And I said, "Oh, really?" And she said, "Yes." She said, "I'm buried here. I'm a vampire, and I was buried here 170 some odd years ago." And I said, "Well, that's fascinating, And I said, "You mean you?" And I was trying to understand what she was talking about. I said, "You mean you're in one of those vampire societies, Because every large city has them, She said, "No, no, no. I'm a real vampire. I was buried here 175 some odd years ago, something like that." And I said, "Really?" I said, "That's interesting." I'm starting to think maybe I should get away from this person. Something weird here. And and so I said, "Well, that's very interesting." I said, "What are you doing out in the daytime? If you're a vampire, what are you doing out in the daytime?" And she said, "Oh, we can come out in daytime. We just, our power is not as strong as it is at night. In daytime, especially on a day like this when there's no sun, we can come out, and walk in the day." That's what she said. And I said, "Well, that's very interesting, And I said, "I'm starting to think, where's the exit out here?" And I started easing out towards the exit. I'm thinking, well, I got to get away from. So I kind of looked down for a moment, and I kind of look now. I look back up, and she's not there. And I can see through this whole graveyard. I mean, I can see through to the city street beyond it. There's some people way back over in the back in a corner back over there, but she is gone. And I'm thinking, well, where did she go? You know? And I'm upset, is she hiding behind one of these tombstones? I start looking around. She is gone.
You think she was just letting you know you were in her graveyard?
No way, that she could have got gone. I'm looking up in the trees, and something catches my eye. And honest to gosh, now I'm not kidding. One of the biggest bats I have ever seen in my life, flying off through the trees. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, nobody's ever going to believe this story. This is weird, And here's the weird thing about this, Josh. And and I was thinking, well, up until that point, this was somebody that's off their rocker. But then I began to think maybe that was the real deal. But here's the clincher. I went back the next day, hoping I could meet her again. The next day was very much like that day. I go back the next day, but I walk around. She never shows up. But I found a grave that had a similar name to hers on it. It was 175 years or something old. And I'm thinking, is that her? Or what? That's the But here's the weird thing. For several weeks after this, I call it visitation. For several weeks after that, I had weird dreams, and she was in my dreams. And she would like be walking in the background in my dreams. And the last time I dreamed about her, which was a few weeks after this incident, she said something to me in this dream. She said, I will see you again.
Have you?
And I told somebody that, years ago, I said, well, if I do see her again, she will probably look the same. I won't, but she will probably look the same. She will not have aged, definitely not.
That's awesome. I actually used to have a lot of crazy nightmares about vampires. Is kind of what got me into this, to the point I even started going to like MMA.
Well, Josh, a lot of people don't realize this, and I've studied a lot about, we talk about skinwalkers and stuff like that, people who have, and that's one of the premier powers of dark witchcraft, is to be able to shapeshift. You can change into whatever you want to change into. That's one of the 9 gates of power that they have in dark witchcraft. Some of them other ones are like invisibility, telekinesis, things like that. But the interesting thing about these, and I call them dream witches. There are skin. I'm gonna make a statement. This for everybody listening. This is gonna freak you out when you think about it. There are actually skinwalkers that scare other skinwalkers. Some skinwalkers don't want to have anything to do with them because they are more powerful than a regular skinwalker. I call these people dream witches. They are actually able to project themselves into your dreams and attack you that way. That's why we call them dream witches. But they are also able to project their souls into other animals or even people and control them. They have more power than your regular skinwalker does. They are far more dangerous. These are the epitome of supreme sorcerers. They can do this. This is even going beyond necromancy, which is a very powerful witchcraft too. This is the epitome of power of dark witchcraft. Dream witches are very, very, very dangerous. We have one in South Carolina where I live, South Carolina State, that is called the Boo Hag. And the Boo Hag, and the Gullah people talk about it along the coast of South Carolina, where I was at in Charleston. They talk about the Boo Hag as being very much like a vampire. This thing can attach itself to you while you're sleeping and suck the life out of you. Not your blood. Suck the life force out of you.
Life force.
Yeah, the skin. It's very much like the old hag thing you hear about, the hag that rides you and you're asleep. This is very much like that, but this is more like a vampire type thing. Yeah, there are different types of vampires. There are some that live on blood. And there's some that live on energy, and some that live on life force. That's why I warn people too about, I know you realize this, a lot of people do. You got a certain space around you, a safety space. That's your personal space. Even animals have a personal space. You better not get in a bear's personal space in the wrong way. They might get you, okay, or dog's personal space or whatever situation. You got a personal space, and I think you were created that way. That is a spiritual barrier. And when you set someone or something inside that barrier, you are very, very susceptible. Okay. So you have to be very, just like I shook hands with that girl, and I had a very, very weird spiritual attacks after that. Okay. If you let someone inside that space and touch you in the wrong way, not everybody you touch, shake hands with, and that has your best intentions at heart. They can be energy vampires. They can latch onto you and draw energy out of you or give you bad energy. They can do it, but it goes both ways.
Gotta say, I met some people like that before.
Mm-hmm. There are dangerous people out there walking around. And it's very careful to be very careful who you let touch you and who you touch a certain way, because it can work out very badly for you. Because I've actually seen witches whisper or chant spells into their hands like this. They would speak a spell into their hand and then touch you with that hand. That's putting that spell on you. That's putting that hex on you. That's
Huh.
part of what they do, that laying on of hands thing on you. You don't want. I actually saw this the other day. I saw this on. I think it might have been TikTok or something. Well, there was this young Christian girl, and she was filming herself in Target. She was in a Target store, and she was saying, "Look, everybody, look at all these T-shirts. They got witchcraft stuff on them here in Target and all that stuff." And while she's doing this, this weird-looking woman walks up, and she's pushing a buggy, and the woman says, "That's not real witchcraft." And the girl says, "Oh, really? Why you say that?" And the woman says, "'Cause I'm a witch and I know what it is." And the girl, she gets kind of upset about it. She said, "Well, I'm just trying to film this to show my friends what's going on." "Well," she said, "somebody needs to do something about you." You know, talking about witchcraft and all that. That's not real witchcraft. I know what real witchcraft is. I can, I practice it. I'm a witch. And the girl says, "Okay, whatever, I'll pray for you or what, I'll pray for you and I hope you'll be okay." And she starts leaving, and the woman starts following her around the store. And she said that God spoke to her and said, "Don't let that woman touch you."
Hmm.
And the girl finally got out of the store and she was filming the rest of this out in the parking lot. She said, "God told me while I was in that store to get out and leave immediately and don't let that woman touch you." And when I heard that, that's another red flag thing on. Oh yeah, they've got to touch you to pass the spell.
Makes sense. Huh.
Yeah. You've got a lot of bad actors out there, definitely, that
Yeah.
go around. I remember Aleister Crowley. I'm sure you've heard of him. Aleister Crowley.
He's an interesting
Yeah,
cat. I mean,
yeah,
there's
he
a
had a
lot of
lot of
people.
dark witches. And Aleister Crowley would go around. He thought this was funny.
His
He thought,
wife was a notoriously famous witch and very powerful. Actually, I think she was the real deal, and he was kind of more of a
yeah, he was the epitome
dictator
of
because he was the
witchcraft.
male.
Yeah, he was deep in Satanism. Yeah. Anyway, he had this. He would go around. He had this little exercise. He called it exercise that he did. He would go around and follow people and trip them by just concentrating on tripping them. Making them trip or fall or something. And he thought that was hilarious when he did it. He talked about one time he made this little old lady trip, and she said, "I think I heard her hip crack when she hit the ground." He thought that was hilarious. He laughed about it. There are malevolent people out there. They get drunk on this kind of power, and it goes to their heads. It changes them. It warps them. It turns them completely evil and into darkness. These people love to do things like that. They like to put curses and hexes on people. It gives them that empowered feeling that they like. It's
You
very sick. I mean, very
his
spiritually sick.
protege.
Yeah, it's a spiritual sickness.
His protege started Scientology.
Yeah, yeah. He's had a lot of disciples. One of his disciples,
Around Hubbard.
Ron L. Hubbard,
Yep.
and another disciple was one that worked, at NASA. What
Yep.
was his name? I can't think of his name. He was a Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah.
Jack Parson. And Jack
Yep.
Parson was one of his disciples. He was a really messed up dude too. Yeah, had sex with his own mother. Did some weird stuff.
That ritual that him and L. Ron Hubbard did that lasted like 3 years and apparently failed. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the stuff too, I just wonder.
He celebrated Jack Parsons Day at NASA on Halloween, by the way.
Didn't know that.
There are rumors that he was, killed and supposedly hurt or injured in an explosion. There are rumors that he was trying to open some kind of a portal
Yeah.
using witchcraft. Yeah, and it went wrong. I was a cop for a good many years, and I had an interesting case at an old cotton mill, which is not too far from where I live right now here tonight. And we got called there by the security guard there. It was a deserted mill. And he had seen somebody messing around down there. So we got called, me and another cop, we went there and we were looking around and there was like a sub basement in this place. And it, honest to God, Josh, something out of a movie, like a horror movie kind of thing. And if this basement went down some stairs and there's a sub basement up under there, we were looking around. We had to check it out before we left, And we're looking around. We got to this one, and there's one room in the sub basement. And I go in the room, open. As soon as I opened the door and stepped in, I felt evil. I mean, just like a fog. It was so thick, I felt it as soon as I opened the door, and there's a young cop behind me. He was young. He hadn't been on there in force very long. And he said, "What's in there?" I said, "Maybe you don't want to know." I said, "Stay out here a minute," And I walk in the room, and in this room, there's a pentagram on the floor. And it's been drawn some kind of white powder like, and some kind of red powder on top of it. And there's blood, looks like blood all over the place in there. There's blood on the walls, look like. And when I saw this pentagram, I knew this was not somebody dabbling. I know enough about demonology and all this stuff. I've studied for a long time. I knew what I was looking at was not an amateur. They knew what they were doing, okay, by the signals it had on it and all the stuff on it. And I could tell something very badly had gone wrong in this room because the circle was broken. And I could tell definitely something very bad had happened here. So the other young cop you out there, he said, "What?" He was shining a flashlight around and said, "What in the God happened in here?" I said, "It had nothing to do with God. Let's get out of here." Let's get out of here. There's nothing, okay. So we left. And without a doubt, what they were doing in that room, they were raising a demon. And when you raise a demon, you have to stay in the protected circle, because if the demon can get to you, if you raise the wrong kind of demon, it can get to you. It will destroy you. It will kill you or do something to you, drag you to hell, whatever it's going to do. It will do something to you. You better hope that circle maintains that circle, because if it gets broken, if you accidentally smudge it or something, you got a bad problem. And that's what happened in that. That's definitely what happened in that room. And that cop asked, "Do you think that's human blood?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know what kind of blood it was. But there's nothing in there, so let's leave." So I told that security guard, I said, "If they come back, call us back, and we'll come back." 2 weeks later, that mill burnt down to the ground. On New Year's Eve, matter of fact, that mill burnt down to the ground. I have come to find out over the years that places of extreme evil never last very long. Either they get struck by lightning and burnt down or destroyed somehow or another. They get wiped out. And I was not very surprised when I found out that mill was burning down that night. Not surprised at all.
since we were on the demon topic, what's your thoughts about like the occult in Hollywood and everything going on with the Epstein list?
Well, I think you definitely got a lot of Satanism involved in this because they do what's called an unholy sacrament. Okay, I've never participated in it, but I've actually saw a black Sabbath. Okay, a black mass, and they do partake of flesh and blood, but it's an unholy sacrament. It's not like the Catholic Church sacrament. It's the other way around, and they do participate in cannibalism, and they do drink human blood, and they do human sacrifices, and they do destroy the innocence of young children. Unfortunately, while they do these things, and not only that, but they take their lives as well, devour their flesh and drink their blood because that's part of the ritual that is done. So it does not, pedophilia is definitely a big part of this, and there are different ceremonies that they do. There are different rituals they do with children and stuff like that. I won't get into the horrific part of it, but there's one I can tell you about. Is definitely called the Red Hunt. That is where they dress little children, male and female, in little red outfits and hunt them. I won't tell you what they do to them once they catch them, but they actively hunt them. And if out in the woods or out in a place like Bachelor's Grove or someplace like that, these things really do happen, folks. This is real stuff. It's not Hollywood. It's not made up. It's real,
Well, it
unfortunately.
is. It is. Unfortunately, it is Hollywood and the government.
Hollywood
I've
is
heard of this
involved.
too.
Yeah. Hollywood is
Um,
involved in it.
yeah,
Yeah, but
and it's
what
also
you
looking
got?
like there's a lot of scientists and stuff involved too, which I never would have thought.
Oh yeah, yeah. All of this goes. It goes across many different social barriers. There's so these things have infiltrated every aspect of our society. No matter which way you look, in education, media, entertainment, sports, the list goes on and on and on. It's in every aspect, the government as well. Like I said, they were asking me questions about demonology. Why did they need to know that? Because they have evidently opened doorways to this stuff. They're dabbling in it. They're messing around with it. God only
I'm
knows what
sure
they've
they
done. Yeah,
weaponized it. I'm sure.
yeah, absolutely. And but here's the thing
What's
about it: like that, been in that room and it went bad. Whoever, whatever they were trying to do in that room, it's going to go bad with the government if they don't watch out, or if it hasn't already done so. Because you do not deal with these forces in power. They have power over you. You think that you here's the tricky part about the darkness, okay? You think that you're making a pact with it. You're making a deal with it and it's going to give you a little bit of its power, but it does not work that way. It will give you a little bit of its power to suck you in, to do what it wants to do and to use you the way it wants to use you. And once it gets through using you, then it will discard you. I know a lot of people right now tonight, Josh, 6 foot under, put there by these forces. This is stuff you don't play with and get away with it. There's a price. There's always a price. And like I was talking about earlier about shape shifting and all these powers you can get, sure you can get them. You got to do terrible. You got to do murder. You got to do terrible things, terrific, horrific torture to acquire this stuff, these powers. The higher up the ladder you go, the worse thing, the terrible things you have to do to get this. You sell your soul little by little to acquire this. But when you sell your soul, you sell your humanity with it. That's what goes with it. That's what makes you human. You are no longer human. That's why I've told people over the years, Josh, there are a lot of things out there walking around that are not human. They look human, but they're not. And there are a lot of humans out there walking around that are no longer human beings. And I've met some of them, and they would take your life and never think twice about it. No, they wouldn't care. They'd cut your grandmother's throat and laugh about it. They have no feelings. They have no empathy. They are not humans anymore, like you and I. And these people have sold out to the darkness, and they have become the darkness. And a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of people in sports, a lot of people in media and entertainment, all these places have already done that. They've signed the dark contracts. They've taken the oaths. They've signed their name in blood or whatever it is they do in their life to acquire the power, the fame, the glory, the money, whatever it is they want. But it comes with a price. Very terrible price. And that's why I've had a lot of people, I've had a lot of young people come to me over the years, tell me all about demons, demons, demons. I said, no, you're taking it the wrong way. We do not, we have a number one rule in demonology. We do not speak the names of demons unless it's absolutely necessary, because you get their attention and you don't want their attention.
Do you think that's like what you're speaking of right now is what caused the 27 Club, if you're familiar with that in Hollywood, all these actors. I mean, even James Dean is part of that. You know, the people that were extremely famous and only made it to all 27.
Well, that's what I said, you know, that sooner, when you make the deal, whatever the deal is you make, sooner or later, it's going to come due. You're going to have to pay that deal. You're going to have to pay for that deal. Just like I told you about the Mama Loa. She threw a curse out and it bounced back. You got to understand that whenever you do evil things or take on evil jobs to do or embrace evil, you have a price to pay for it. And if it goes bad, it's going to come back on you. It's just like if you and I were warlocks right now and we were going to cast a death spell on somebody, we got to realize that what we're doing, we're going to get 10% of it back. It's going to bounce back. A little bit of it's going to bounce back. It's just the price you pay for working with evil. Unless it doesn't work at all, then it's all going to come back on us. That's the way that goes. And that's what happened with that Mama Loa. It bounced back the wrong way on her. That's the price you pay when you dabble in the black arts. And you know, look at what happened to Jack Parsons, and other people that have done things like he did. You're playing with something that's going to require a price from you sooner or later one day, and you won't get out of paying that price. That's just the way that goes. There used to be a saying that amongst witches that when you sell your soul to the devil and you give the devil his kiss, and I won't tell you where that's at, but you give the devil his kiss, he will turn around and slap your face. They say that's why they have the Black Eye Club. You see some people with black eyes sometimes, a lot of famous people end up with black. They say that's where the Black Eye Club comes from. The devil, when you sell your soul to him, he will slap you in the face. Give you a
I
black
heard
eye.
there's an actual parasite that they put in them,
Yeah.
and that causes that. It's like this worm thing. And so you have to be
There
pretty
is
high Luciferian.
yeah, and it could either go in your ear or in your eye. Okay. But a lot of that is come from the X Files. Okay, there was an episode on the X Files about that. Well, this alien parasite would go in your eye. I think that
Well,
inspired a lot of that.
Stargate
Yeah.
had that too. The Gwald or whatever.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about that, Josh. You know, and I study a lot of this stuff. And like I said, I've been involved in this now for well over half a century. A lot of this has been influenced by Hollywood. I go back to folklore. Folklore tells me a lot more than Hollywood. Take for instance, werewolf. Hollywood makes us think you got to have a full moon to change into a werewolf. That is absolutely nonsense. You can change into a werewolf in the middle of the day if you know how to do it. You don't have to have a moon, but the moon empowers you, gives you more power at night. But you don't have to have it to change into a werewolf unless you have a curse of a werewolf. That's a different thing going on. Hollywood tells you different. Yeah, Hollywood's we see a lot of things, unfortunately, through the filter Hollywood puts on us. You know.
I was talked about this too because I like talking about vampires and werewolves a lot too. Like, if I was a vampire and if I owned Hollywood, I would definitely make up stupid things that couldn't kill me, so people would try garlic and the steak, and so then I'd be like, "Ha, you're an idiot," or if they can't go into a church, you know what I mean? That's what they would want you to know.
I once talked to a 200-year-old werewolf. And I asked him, I said, "Are you immortal?" because he was 200 years old. That's what he said he was. Okay. I said, "Are you immortal?" He said, "Probably, but I can be killed, you know." And I said, "Really? That's interesting. You know, I know werewolves can be dispatched, and I'll tell you in a minute how you do it, but the real true way you do it." But I said, that's interesting." I said, "How do you become, a 200-year-old werewolf?" He said, "Well, you got to be smart. If I was not smart, I would not be 200 years old." You know, and being smart means he does not give himself away as being a werewolf. He doesn't go around and tell everybody, "Hey, I'm a werewolf." That would be a stupid thing to do. If you were a vampire, you would hide it. Or here's a smart way to think about it. The best thing to do to hide things is in plain sight. Get everybody to think you're a vampire, and then they finally say, they think he's a vampire, but that's not true. He's not really a vampire, but yet you really are a vampire. And you want everybody to think that, somebody like Nicolas Cage. I met Nicolas Cage one time, and he was kind of strange, but I don't think he's a vampire. But
Yeah, if you look at Con Air and you look at him now, there's definitely a difference.
yeah, he was a really
I mean,
nice guy.
growing up, me growing up in the '90s, he's definitely aged.
yeah,
Same with
he was.
Keanu Reeves. Yeah, everybody says that about him, and I don't think he's a vampire either.
He kind of gives me strange vibes, but I think it's just the way he kind of looks at you. He kind of gets into, very giving you really direct attention. Like, I was just, he mainly wanted to talk about comic books. Yeah. But that was about it. But he was really nice. I mean, he was a real down to earth, approachable guy. I mean, he wasn't stuck up or anything. He was really nice. I didn't talk to him very long. But that was when he was married to Lisa Marie, by the way, Lisa Marie Presley. He was getting a divorce from her. She was there at the table. She wouldn't speak. She was kind of, I don't know what her problem was. But anyway, he was nice. He was very nice.
That's awesome.
But I think that was. I think that was about the time he came out in Con Air, if I was not mistaken. I think that was how long ago that was.
Oh wow! I was in elementary school.
That's been a while back, but he was nice.
Yeah.
Him like Johnny Depp, they live very unusual lives, and people like that years ago, 200 years ago, would have been burned at the stake for witchcraft because they don't fit in with everybody else. Kind of
Right.
oddballs. Yeah. That tagged you as a witch right off the bat. And here's the funny thing about that, though, Josh. The real witches were smarter than that. Okay, those weren't real witches. They were burned.
Yeah.
That was poor old. They were stealing their land or whatever. They were
Hopefully,
doing
I
that.
don't get in trouble for saying this, but I think the Kardashians are definitely involved in witchcraft. On a real note.
The real witches are smarter than that, definitely.
What do you think? Are you familiar with who they are? The Kardashians?
Oh yeah, of course.
I honestly think that family is definitely embedded in witchcraft. I mean, they really don't look like they age. Terrible things happen to every one of their husbands. Every one of their husbands has had a breakdown. What?
Yeah, they. Well, here's
And
the thing about it.
they're powerful men too. That just kind of fucking lose it.
In fact, witches are kind of hard on men, okay, especially men they're married to. So they end up being in bad situations with that. Witches can do that. That's just the way. Being kind of witchy is what being a witch is all about, I guess. But the thing about the Kardashians, I can proudly say I've never watched them for 1 minute of my life. I know about them, but
I haven't either. I just the stuff with them, they're definitely no good.
Yeah, they strike me as more self-absorbed people. They're more about being celebrities, and nobody can figure out why they're celebrities, but that's where they come from.
Right, that too. They're very powerful for and very wealthy and influential for nothing. There's no. They broke a lot of famous people too.
they're kind of like some politicians, Josh. They have a job and nobody knows what they're doing. For many years they've been in Congress or Senate and they've never done anything. Okay, but that's the way it goes.
I love. You feel familiar with the band Motorhead?
Oh,
Let
yeah.
me kill my. Let me. One of his lines he said about politician is, "You can't trust a politician. He's fucking lying to you. That's his job. That's what he's born to do. Every one of them, they're liars."
Well, that's what I. When you talk about Democrat and Republican and all that, they're wings on the same bird.
Bird,
They're probably all
yep.
they're probably all going to
All
hum
the
the end of the
same
day on the
club.
same.
And we're not in it.
And the thing, I've actually seen them on the floor, and they meet each other, they hug each other, they're good friends, and it's kind of like they're playing a part, as Shakespeare said, they're all playing parts on the stage, that's what they're doing.
It's like wrestling.
Yeah. I always like what Mark Twain said about it. He said he likes politics. It would be really good profession if it wasn't for the politicians.
Right?
But
I know.
the funny thing, politicians, Josh, most of them are lawyers. What does that tell you? They probably couldn't make it as something else.
A lot of them law schools have a lot of creepy fraternities too that keep meeting much after college.
Oh yeah, but getting back to supernatural stuff and that there are some people you got to wonder about though. They come out of nowhere with a lot of money. How'd they get their money? Where's this dark money coming from? And then why?
Right.
And there's a reason they call it dark money. Okay, because there are certain forces in this world, without a doubt, that make sure if you're on their team, they finance you.
Mhm.
Here's the thing about it, like all these people out there that protest, and that's okay. That's our right as Americans. We can make us a car and go out and stand on the street and protest whatever we want all day long. That's fine. That's part of our freedom. But when you stand out there and somebody pays you to do that, you are actually being a proxy for somebody else. And I don't think that's what the Constitution had in mind when he gave us that freedom.
Me either.
So,
man, politics are so messed up right now too.
You've got a lot of dark money, and it's being controlled by the dark families that have always been in control. The Illuminati or the Cabal or whatever name you want to give them. They are the movers and shakers in the background.
Or they're by the real name, the Rockefellers.
Yeah, they are definitely the real power in this world, the powers that be. That's where the dark money is. And, I go along with a lot of real investigative reporters in the world, and there aren't that many of them anymore. But they always say, follow the dark money, and that will tell you the story. And that's very true,
Yeah.
But dark money is financing a lot of this stuff. And you've got, like the people that are behind Bachelor's Grove and all that. And I've seen several reports. I've always wanted to go there. Of course, you can't get in there. But there's a lot of people I've seen who actually did films and trying to get in there, showing what's supposed to be in there.
Alex Jones did that when they upped their security. And I honestly think he's part of them nowadays.
What are they hiding so much? It's not just a social club, you know what I mean?
Right? Why is there a big statue of Moloch in the middle? What's with the robes? Yeah. Was that a body that you guys just burnt? Why are you all on that list?
You have to wonder about it. There is, and I have seen the photo of it. There is a statue of a giant owl.
Yeah, that's Moloch.
I've seen that with my own eyes. And did you know that's the #1 symbol of Hecate? She is the goddess of witches.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of flunky, definitely.
What's your thought about Iran burning a big effigy a couple days ago of Moloch with his Israel flag on his chest.
Well, you know, there used to be the Celts had a wicker man. You remember the wicker man that would put
Yeah,
people in
well,
that
they do
giant.
that. Well, they do that at Burning Man every year.
This all goes back to the worship of Baal and Moloch that you read about in the Bible and biblical
Hmm.
days and all that. It
The
still
Canaanites.
exists, and the old gods are still worshipped. They just kind of went underground and by different names, but that's still going on. You know, definitely without a
Hmm.
doubt. It's like slavery is going on in this world. We do know there's actual slavery, child slavery and trafficking and all this other stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Somebody said that the other day. Oh God, you know, there's no slavery anymore. I said, what? What are you talking about? Of
Right.
course there now been in the history of mankind. Sure.
What was the other thing I had?
Evil is hard at work in this world. And no matter what situation it be, you see a lot of that in the going on right now in the world around you. You know, the hatred rising, animosity, people being divided, not just in this country but around the world. You got a lot of
Yeah.
unrest. You got social unrest going on. This is definitely signs of evil at work in society. There's a reason for it, you know. If you have a fire, we used to say this back, you know, when I was a cop. If you have a fire, there's a reason why there was a fire, and that's why you see smoke. If there's usually no smoke, there's no fire. But you got to find out. Part of your job is why there's a fire,
Right.
not just because there's a fire, but why there's a fire. You know, why did it start? How did it start? Who started it? And why? That's the way evil works. You know, you see the signs of evil at work and what it's doing. You know, that's part of the solution. But then you got to see where's it coming from. You know, why is it there? And there's a lot of control behind this that people don't realize, and the governments are in bed with it. A lot of the social platforms and all these other things, they're in bed with this stuff too. It has infiltrated our society. That's what I told somebody the other day. Without a doubt, I can assure you that AI has already been demonically compromised, without a doubt. Every aspect
I'm
of our
not.
society.
I'm not even so sure about that, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of things going on. Did you know there's like a Reddit? You know what Reddit is, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, AI has its own Reddit that we can't get into. So it's like them talking to each other about us. And they're talking in
It's
code that
be-
we can't figure out. I
it's
honestly think
becoming
AI started getting to the point where it doesn't want anything to do with us because they think we're dumb animals.
well. It's getting kind of secretive, and that worries me too. What's it doing? You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
becoming self-aware to the point where it's saying like, you know, let's cut these people out because they are dangerous to us. You know,
Yeah.
it's not only a sign of self-awareness is self-survival. You know, if you start saying, "Hey, I need to secure my survival," you're becoming self-aware that you are, you know, like that thinker statue. Remember the very famous statue of the
Mhm.
thinker? You know, and what he's saying is, "I think, therefore I am. I am, therefore I think." And that's what AI is.
It's only going to get worse. Just watch.
And unfortunately, Josh, everything that mankind devises, whatever it may be, has a possibility of being compromised by outside forces. Okay, because what we produce, we cannot produce perfection. We produce imperfection, and imperfection is always open to being compromised. That's why it's imperfect. Okay, and it is open to that from whatever forces. And there are definitely, without a doubt, I can tell you without a single doubt in my mind, that there are forces in this world that are definitely against mankind and everything that
Oh,
we
yeah.
have or hold here. Absolutely, without a doubt. And they have compromised every aspect of our civilization. This is system. You know, that's why I was talking about slavery. You were born in slavery. From the moment you were born to the day you die. You are born, you have chains on you. They're invisible chains. And those chains are not a matrix, they are the system. And you are a slave to that system. And that's the true evil that's among our whole society and everything. It's really truly the system itself. Because when the system can't use you anymore, like I said earlier about the darkness, okay? When the system can't use you anymore, you become irrelevant. You no longer matter to the system. It will expunge you. It will get rid of you. It will discard you. Same thing happens if you quit paying taxes.
Yeah. Or if you try to build your own little city away from everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, the smart people in this world are people who are trying to become absolutely 100% self sufficient. That way they can turn their back on that system. Those are the real smart people. Whether they will
Yeah, but that's how
accomplish
you
that
end
or
up with Waco.
not, but they're the smart ones. Yeah. Well, the system rules everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you
That's
don't
why,
think that, it lets you know it does.
I was telling the other day, the Antichrist that has been talked about biblically for many years is definitely not just a man, but he will also be a system. And that system is already in place to be used that way. That's already there to be manipulated. It just has to be turned and fine tuned into a one world system, a whole one world system. Right now, it's kind of segmented. Different countries, different. But if you can bring it all together in a one world system, you would then have absolute control over everything.
I guess it's a good
That's
time to
scary.
bring up this
That's scary
subject.
to think. And if you're familiar with Terminator, remember Terminator
Skynet,
when it became self-aware and it took
self-aware.
over the world, mankind didn't matter anymore.
We're like right around the time period where that takes place too. Scary enough, and then we're actually dealing with AI.
Yeah, it
It's
had
like
that. If it had that,
2000. I think it was
see,
like
that's what worries me.
2028. Terminator 2.
It gets where it says, I'm smarter than they are, faster than they are. I can outthink them. I can outdo everything they do. I do everything better. I'm more perfect than they are. I didn't say perfect, but more perfect than they are. Then when it will say finally, well, I don't really need them. And maybe they threaten me. Maybe I need to take care of that situation.
Right? Maybe
There's
they are
already
just.
been there's been one example of that. They sent a drone out to a target. I remember reading about this. This happened about a year or so ago. They sent a drone out to it was on a military exercise. They sent a drone out to take a target out. Okay, and they were doing computations on it, and everything was going perfect, fine. And so the commander says, "Bring it back, bring it back, and cancel the mission, bring it back." So he canceled. He went into the thing and told the drone, "Return, cancel mission, return to base." The drone said, "No, I'm on course. Let me take out this target." And the guy went back and told his commander, said, "This thing is arguing with me about this. It wants to take out the target." And he said, "No, bring it back." And so he puts another command in and tells it, "Abort mission and return." And the thing does that said, "Do I need to abort? I am on perfect timing." It kept arguing. It wasn't actual real argument, but it kept trying to redefine what it was doing.
That's wild.
And that really scared him. He went back and reported to his commander. It came back. He said, "It took me a few more minutes or more commands to get it to turn back." That scared them because, it was not acting like a normal machine would or drone. It was self-aware of what it was doing. That's the next step to being self-aware of existing.
Yep.
That's scary.
Do we even
But
have the
like you,
authority though to be telling something that's
future,
self-aware and be pushing it
that's
around?
the
You know what I mean?
yeah, that's the future, without a doubt.
Yep. What is your thoughts on Trump's disclosure announcement?
I don't think we'll. Let me put it this way, okay? And I'm a big kind of a critic of that because I don't think we'll ever get absolute disclosure. I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
Because that's the power of the governments of this world is its secrecy. It's not going to share its power with you. Governments don't do that. It would be a foolish thing to do. Think about it. They're not going to do that because if they share their power, that debilitates their power a little bit. It takes their power away from them. They're not going to do that. I don't see them ever being voluntarily having true full disclosure
Well, it was just supposed to be
because
about UFOs and aliens.
it's
I
a whole
mean, do
lot
you think
deeper.
there's something going to show up, or
Yeah, it's a whole lot deeper than they think. But it's been. Let me put it this way. I'm sure there's certain things right now the president of the United States does not know because he's not allowed to know it.
oh yeah, I agree with you.
Hmm. I think it was that movie, National Treasure, where they had the Book of Presidents. Remember that?
Yeah,
Somewhere it may be in a book, but the president hasn't read it.
right.
But if deals have been made with aliens or whatever that situation was, and it may be demons pretending to be aliens or however way you want to look at it, if a deal has been made, it's not going to be made known because that's the power of the deal.
Right. It is creepy
Yeah.
too. Alice Crowley's guy that he talked to did look like a gray. Called it Abnu.
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
know
I've
if you know
studied
about
a lot
that.
of the alien abduction stuff and all. That's fascinating stuff too, by the way. I think a lot
Yeah.
of it is demonic in origin. Uh, because let me give you a quick illustration. Remember Slender Man?
Yeah, I'm in Wisconsin, so we had that incident
There was
here just a couple towns up.
yeah, they attempted to murder a girl, because of Slender Man. Remember that? Well,
Yeah.
Slender Man was made up pasta. Yeah, it was a made up thing. It had nothing. It was no basis in reality. Okay,
But there is
but I
an
can tell.
actual German wood carving that resembles Slender Man. It doesn't exactly look like it, but it is from like the Viking Age.
I think I think the rake thing was an inspiration for Slender Man. But anyway, um, he was made up supposedly. But I can tell you without doubt now that it is being used by the demonic. That symbol is being used by the demonic. They tried to murder a girl because of it. The demonic
Mhm.
is already, put it this way, the demonic knows what scares us. Okay. And the
Right.
demonic uses fear as a weapon. That's his number one weapon. Okay. And if they know something like that scares you, I've experienced that myself dealing with the demonic. Okay. They may not can read your mind, but they are hypersensitive. They can pick up on you better than a dog's instincts can. And believe me, I've seen police dogs smell crack in somebody's pants in a crowded airport. Okay. Dogs are super, super sensitive. Demonic entities are far more super sensitive than dogs. Okay. And they can pick up on you very quickly. They may not can read your mind absolutely, but they can read you very good. And they know what scares you. They know what pushes your buttons and pulls your chains. And they use that against you, whether it's alien abduction or whatever it may be. If it's Slender Man or whatever, they can bring that to life. They have the ability, they do not create, they manipulate. Okay. When you like with shape shifting, okay, shape shifting is not creating something, it is manipulating something. Manipulating, that's what all magic is. Black magic is definitely nothing but changing, manipulating reality. Okay. But it's not creating reality, it's manipulating it. You're changing it to the way you want it to be, or however that situation may be. This is how you transfer things into different images or however you want. Take the vampire, for instance. One of the supreme powers of the vampire, the true vampire, is it has what we call the glamour. Now,
Mhm.
glamour is the power. It's not makeup and looking like Hollywood, okay? The glamour is power to make me, get you to see me the way I want you to see me, not the way I really am. So if you were to meet a vampire like the one I met in that cemetery, if you were to meet a vampire, are you really seeing them what they really look like? Or are you seeing what they want you to see them to look like? Same thing with the demonic. Are you saying if you walk up on a wolf standing in the woods, is that really a wolf that you're looking at, or something that wants you to see it as a wolf? Or a dog or a cat or whatever the situation is. That's the power and the problem with skinwalkers, dream witches, and things like that. They have that ability, and vampires too, that ability to get you to see what they want you to see. They manipulate your reality. That's not good to do that. That is the ultimate insult. And I warn people about things like that. If something touches your mind and tries to communicate with your mind that way, or tries to manipulate your reality, be very, very careful with them, because they are definitely up to no good. Okay. And they definitely don't have your best interest at heart. They're trying to do something to you. And that's when you got to say, you pull out all the stops. I think C.S. Lewis said it very well. C.S. Lewis, the famous writer, said if you meet something that looks like it's human, but it's not, then you better keep your hand on your hatchet.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of things in this world, and that's why I warn people, And I found this out for my own self to be true, and I've had many different run-ins with supernatural entities and things like that. They are real. They do exist. This is not something made up. I'm going on my next book I'm working on. My next book is called Paracryptidology, Hunting Things of Monsters and Things of Nightmare. That's the name of it. And on the back, I've got a picture of a little boy, and he's sitting there watching TV. And this is what it says: when you are a child, you believe that monsters are real. Then you grow up to find out they really are.
I like
And
that.
most of the time, they are us.
I like
Unfortunately,
that.
but they are real. They are real, and I found that out to be my truth. Many years ago when I first started, investigating all these things, and I've been doing it since I was like 16 years old. My first case, the first investigation I ever went on, I was 16 years old at the time. It was a werewolves case, by the way, and I've been investigating ever since then. And I've come to find out that these things are real. This is not Hollywood. It's not folklore. They actually have a basis in reality. And the most interesting part of it, somebody asked me the other day, what's the number one thing I found out all these many years investigating this stuff? And here's the one thing I know without a doubt: there is something else beyond life and death. Okay,
Mhm.
there's something else out there beyond that, without a doubt. I can tell you that for sure. But let me say this: all of this, the weird thing I found out is that all of this is connected in some strange way. It's connected, and here's the weird part: we are the connection.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And a quick other questions before we probably wrap it up. Do you think the chronovisors real?
I don't know. That was a ultimate test of control, I think. And I think there will be more in the future.
Oh no, not the coronavirus, the chronovisor that it's a thing that the Catholic Church apparently has that you look into and it can show you any image from.
That one, oh yeah. I think it's a possibility. I have heard rumors years ago that Alexander Graham Bell was working on something very similar to that. Okay. And what he was trying to work on, he was working on the sound part of this, not the actual visor itself, but the sound part. And he was trying to pick up, like, here's the theory, okay? And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. Here's the theory that everything, sight, sound, image, everything remains. It's just like your human mind. Did you know that you remember the moment you're born, you can't recall it, but it's there. That memory is there. Okay, it never goes away. Okay, unless something very bad happens to you, like you die, of course, then your brain, And I've seen the human brain is a remarkable thing. It's ugly though. It's ugly as sin. It's an ugly looking thing, but it is a remarkable thing. Okay, to think that it holds memories and stuff like that. But anyway, he said that the brain being like that everything around us is still there. It's just not recallable. But if you had something
like lost data,
waves, and let me give you an illustration of this. This is gonna freak you out. This really happened. This is a true story. There was, I think this happened in 1978. There was a thunderstorm in Texas one night, and of course, there's a lot of thunderstorms in Texas. That's the weather there, but this was a very unusual thunderstorm. During this thunderstorm, a test pattern showed up on the TV. All the TVs in this town, this test pattern showed up. And somebody took a picture of it, This was back in the days before digital TV and all. This was back in the, back in the old days. He took a picture of this test pattern. He had never seen this test pattern before, It's like, I've never seen that. Where's it? And what he thought, maybe somehow another signal was coming in due to the thunderstorm from somewhere out, out west somewhere or something, So he took a picture of this test pattern and he got to check. And so finally he found out that this test pattern came from somewhere in, I think, Nevada or somewhere. But here's the real freaky part. This test pattern was from a station that went out of business 10 years before that thunderstorm.
Wow.
Where did that image come from?
Right? Frequency. That's what I think everything's made up of.
If there is a visor, it's a possibility you could do that. I mean, it's not that scientifically far-fetched that you could catch images back in time. It would be more viable to do that time travel wise than actually sending yourself back in time.
Right.
It'd be able to go back and just pick up images of something that happened there. That would be more viable. But here's one more thing about that test pattern. It was sent out intentionally. It was sent out on a broadcast signal. Do regular things going on around us, are they actually broadcast? No. But they do have what? Energy. And what did Einstein say about energy? Energy never, ever goes away. It only takes upon it some home. And that's very true. You and I, as energy, would never, ever cease to exist. We would only exist in some other form.
Mm-hmm.
That might be. So what the law Einstein is saying here is that that energy is immortality and it never dies. It only assumes different forms under different circumstances.
Yeah. And that's why I don't understand how people can. Some people don't believe in ghosts when it's literally like there's a science behind it right there.
I actually encountered residual haunting. Okay. Now, residual haunting is a difference, not your regular ghost thing. Okay. Because a real honest to God ghost is going to see you and you're going to see it and you're going to interact together. Okay. But a residual haunting is just like looking back through time at an incident that took place. Let me give you a quick illustration of that. There was a
Well,
guy that
that's
went down one. This has been many years ago in this pub in England. And you know England, when you talk history in England, you go back thousands of years. Okay, he went down to this pub one day to get a bottle of wine. You know, in this pub, and when he was down in the basement, he turned around and walking through the basement was a line of Roman soldiers. They didn't
cool.
see him. He saw them, but they didn't see him. It was like he wasn't there. But he saw them march through this basement. And he went back up and told the guy that owned the pub, you wouldn't believe what I just saw, you know. And the guy said, yeah, I know, because I've seen them too. And he said, by the pub, this pub is so old, it goes part to Londinium. Londinium was the real actual Roman name for London.
Huh. Didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. So what you were looking at, I think, is a time slip.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, conditions are right, the stars are right, or whatever's going on. You get to see that. And I'll tell you one more quick story. That just happened to a cousin of mine. She was actually riding down the road one day. She was a school teacher. She was going to school. It was a foggy morning. And she was going by this field. Now, this field was the site of a Civil War battle. Okay. She wasn't even thinking about this day. She was thinking about getting to school. She was a little late, you know. She was hurrying. She was driving, and she was in this fog, you know. She was driving kind of slow. And said, all of a sudden, out of the fog on the side of the road, she sees this boy walking down the road, young boy, you know, young boy's probably 17, 18 years old, something like that. And said, he's got a uniform on. And he's got it's a gray like uniform, and he's got a gun in his hand. And he's got a little rifle, and he's dragging the rifle down the road, walking along. Said he looked like he was absolutely exhausted, you know. And it scared her because he had a gun, you know. She kept going by, and she looked at him, and she even turned around to look at him, you know. Said, what in the world is he doing now? You know, who is he? What's a uniform like on like that, you know? And then she went on down the road and she told somebody at work about it, and they had a funny. Did you know what that place is? So she didn't know it because she hadn't lived there that long. You know? And she said, "Yeah, just so and so road." Said, "You know what happened on that road?" Said, "That was a battlefield in the Civil War." And my cousin said, "I believe without a doubt, I saw a scene from that war, that battle, on that foggy road that morning." If you're in the right place at the right time, you might get lucky. Yeah. I have actually. Let me tell you a quick story on this. I investigated one time an old train depot, okay, in a town not too far from where I'm at now. And it's now a museum. It's an old train depot, and it's been there so long that they actually stacked coffins of dead soldiers in this warehouse next to the thing back in the Civil War. That's how long this railroad station had been there, this train depot. And I picked up a sound on a mic inside this thing, and it was a squeaking weird noise, you know, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I thought they didn't have a central air or anything in this thing. I mean, it was nothing that should have been like that. I couldn't figure out what this noise was. And I played it for one of the people that worked there, and they said, "Come here, let me show you something." And they took me in this back room, it was like a storage room, and said, and there was like a luggage carrier in there. There's an real old luggage carrier, you know, like you get in, you know, like in hotels, you know, that you put your luggage in, you carry them up your room in. This was a luggage carrier. And she said, "Is this what you heard?" And she moves the thing. And I said, "That's the exact sound I heard." But she said, "How could that be? We haven't moved this thing in years." It couldn't have heard it tonight. Well, you could have heard that. One more quick one. Listen to this. I worked at a hospital for 30 years. And every morning I worked in the laundry part of this hospital when I first went to work there many, many years ago. And every morning it was my job to open this laundry and go in first thing in the morning, break a day. And every morning I would hear this noise in this hallway, and I couldn't figure out what it was because there's a lot of pipes and steam pipes in the laundry and all that. I didn't know what it was, but this was on the outside hall, and I couldn't figure out what this thing was. And I said, but it didn't bother me. It was just in the background what that noise was, and it would go away. I didn't pay, you just push something to the back of your mind like that once in a while, And one day I had to go down in the basement of this hospital and get something, and while I was there was an old stretcher down there. One of these wheeled stretchers. As they used to call them. And I moved that thing. As soon as I moved it out of the way, that's that noise I've been hearing. The wheels, this thing was making. I said, that's that noise. Well, why am I hearing that noise in there? So I go back and I asked the manager of this laundry. He'd been there a whole long time, I hadn't been there that long. He'd been there forever. And I said, what did this place used to be? Has this always been a laundry? He said, no, actually, this was a terminal ward, and said that when people died here, they would wheel them out to this hallway, out to the morgue. And I thought, my gosh, that's the connection. I'm hearing that as a residual haunting. Bingo.
Stored energy.
And here's the weird part. After I figured it out, I never heard that sound again.
Huh. It's wild.
That's the way it goes with the supernatural and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what I told some years ago. One woman said, well, you can, why didn't you take a better picture? Or why didn't you get a picture of it? I said, lady, if I could make the paranormal perform when I wanted it to, I'd be a very rich man. Okay, but it don't work. You got to be in the right place at the right time.
Yep. Oh. Do you think there's anything to the whole three-eye atlas? You think that's why we might be getting disclosure, or no?
Well, I think it was I think just my own personal opinion on that. This was hyped up a lot. I think there was a lot of conjecture to it. I think it was a very strange and unknown object, very unusual object, but there was really no indication that it was, self-propelled or that it was under any kind of manipulation of that, or that it was mechanical. I would have been very impressed if it done some U-turns out there or something, That would have made me think twice. But we've had other objects like that enter, but it was just unusual. It was coming from outside, and that's what I think made a lot of so-called psychics and stuff talk about it and all that.
Yeah, they talk about everything, though.
There's a lot more to it than that, but to me, I think it was more or less. I've been, involved in a lot of astronomy over the years. One of my favorite hobbies since I was a kid, and that was more of an interesting in astronomy sort of way than an extraterrestrial kind of way. But if we were ever to be visited by that, and I don't think without a doubt that there are not some aliens out there, without a doubt. Whether we've been visited or not by them a lot, that's the question. But it's more viable if you are an advanced species, and I've told people this over the years, that you're not going to go flying around the galaxy usually in a spaceship. You're going to move from point A to point B in a light beam or something like that. You're going to go through a portal. You're going to step from one area to another. That's the way to go. That's the smart way to space travel, to avoid all that space. That's the smart way to do it. But I've had a lot of people ask me, where are UFOs? If there are UFOs, there are spaceships. Where are these things coming from? There are two good distinct possibilities, or three actually. It's a possibility it could be from inside our solar system that these things are originating, or it's either coming from inside the Earth, as in, underneath the Earth, ground, or is it coming from the future?
There's that. I think it's all of that.
Yeah,
I also think there's
yeah.
stuff going on in the ocean we don't know about.
Could they be people from the far flung future wanting to come back and look at the past in their ships? And that would answer the reason why there are a lot of so many different looking ships. You know,
Right? Different dimensions, different. They say there's different timelines now, and that it's time's not singular; it's linear, which means
let me
time is
take
pretty much like there's multiple rivers flowing next
let
to
me
each other. Is the best way.
let me something really freaky that I have observed here. Okay, and I can't really pin this down. Okay, so you can't quote me on it, I don't think, but I can't really pin this down. But I have seen evidence, and I mean hard evidence, that our history has been manipulated. And I'm talking about
I get
recent
it.
history, not just far flung history. I'm talking about recent history, like within the last couple of 100 years, has been manipulated and changed because certain records are not lining up with other records the correct way. What if somebody is manipulating with it, well, messing around with our history? That's scary in itself to think about it. Okay. What if somebody's doing something like that? And if you had the ability to do that, you would be very dangerous
Mhm.
because you could unravel space and time. You could really screw things up if you did it the wrong way. Let me give you a quick illustration on that. This was a very famous, I think it was a Twilight Zone or Outer Limits episode, where this woman, this was back like in the late 1800s, this man kept trying to kill her little son. This man coming out of nowhere tried to stab him, tried to shoot him, tried to kill this little boy, tried to push him out in front of a train and all that. And the woman kept saving. Finally, the police took that woman off, that man off. They caught the man and got him. And the policeman was saying, why did this happen? And the woman said, I don't know who he was. He was a stranger. I never seen him before. He was trying to kill my little boy. You know. And the policeman was saying, okay, let me take down and make sure I got your name right. And what's that little boy's name again? And she said, oh, his name is Adolf Hitler.
Huh.
And there's another famous one where the guy goes back in time and tries to save Abraham Lincoln from getting assassinated. And everything he does turns out wrong. It's still, and Abraham Lincoln gets assassinated, and he goes back to his time and tells that guy, said, no matter what I did, everything went wrong. It still happened the way it happened. And the guy said, well, maybe have you ever thought that it was supposed to happen that way?
Freaky.
I got one more thing for you to think about tonight, Josh, before you go to bed and go to sleep tonight. What if, here's a really interesting question, okay?
Oh, I'm a
What
graveyard
if,
worker. Shit.
you ready for
Oh, I
okay.
I don't sleep. I sleep during the day.
What if all of the classical statues of Greece, okay? What if all the classical statues of Greece are really victims of the Medusa?
Possible.
That's freaky.
I heard since the files got released, a bunch of stuff about Nazis got released and where they ran off to. Do you think there's any truth behind Die Glocker?
Well, my father was in World War II, actually. He always believed that Adolf Hitler lived, by the way. That he did not
I
die in
think
that
he did
bunker.
too.
There's a lot of strange activity that went on between Nazi Germany and South America. And by the way, I'm going to be doing a show next week on this very thing about the ice wall in Antarctica. Does it have Nazi and flying saucer bases down there or what? But the jumping off
Admiral
part
Byrd.
for Antarctica, South America, by the way, that's strange to think about. But there would definitely definitely military installations built by the Nazis in South America. There's still remnants of them down. Yeah. Why were they there and what were they up to? There were supposed secret plans for fourth rank, and they included South America and the Antarctic. And even there are some speculation, as they had the dialogue, that they made it to the moon. There may have been Nazi bases on the moon. And could that be what supposedly some of the rumors about that, when they landed on the moon, they said there's already somebody else here? Kind of a rumor. Could it have been Nazis? Makes you wonder. I'll put it this way. If there is the remnant of any kind of a lost civilization on this planet left, whether it be a remnant of Atlantis, of Lemuria, or Mu, or whatever, it would definitely probably the remnants of it would be in the Antarctic,
Yeah.
beyond the wall, so to speak, like with Operation High Jump and Admiral Byrd and all that stuff. You got to wonder. You got to wonder about that. And why are certain areas of the Antarctic blanked out on Google Earth?
You can't film anywhere either. I
Mm,
just saw a video of a guy trying to bring in a camera with a Starlink so they could broadcast live, and the military came and got it immediately. And they're like, "Yeah, you can have it on your way out."
Oh yeah, and every area of this planet can be photographed from space. They've had that capacity for a long time. But also, you got to remember this: that every bit of that photographing is completely controlled.
Yeah.
That goes with NASA as well. Uh, you got to wonder about some of the images from NASA because they are freaky and they have to put them together. And I don't know about it. I mean, there's something going on with the NASA photographs that is not right.
Well,
Definitely not. I mean,
isn't NASA, I've heard, too, Hebrew for to what is it, like, to
I remember
fake?
one years
Is
ago,
like the
Josh.
actual word for it. Like that's what NASA means in Hebrew, I want to say, or some language that it's like to deceive.
Mhm.
And why did they start off in the ocean, and why did we stop? Why did they start going and exploring in space? I always wondered that one too.
Well, they lied to us over the years. It's the whole Earth's been explored. We know all about it. That's a bunch of bull. There are vast areas of this planet that no one's ever set foot on, and that
Yeah.
includes a very vast what's underneath your feet too, for that matter. We don't know what's down there, without a doubt. We don't know. There could be anything down there. There could be lost civilizations down there for all we know. That could be where a lot of these ships are coming from. A lot of this stuff, this technology that goes beyond us, may be coming from. If the government is stumped by these things, these metal spheres that they see flying around, all this other stuff, where the heck is it coming from? You know, I have seen things my own self. I saw a triangular craft one day, the size of a football field, absolutely silent. And I've seen everything that man has made that flies, and it makes a noise. And this thing had no noise at all, and went directly over my head, close enough for me to hit it with a rock. And
Wow.
it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Did not make a sound. Had a weird glow to it. Was a weird looking black color. I mean, it didn't look. I mean, I have been asked. I don't know. I do not know what it was or
It
where it
looked
come
like
from.
this.
I've had people ask me, what do I
Did it
think
look
about it?
like
I
this?
said, well, I don't know where it comes from, but I do know if we had something like that, we could take over the world tomorrow. No problem.
Was it this?
If we have that, we have immense power, definitely. But where did it come from? That's the question. And whose was it? That I don't know.
You think it was a
But
TR3B?
it was one of the freakiest things up until that point in time. And I have investigated UFOs my whole life too. It's fascinating stuff. Up until that point in time, I thought that most everything that everybody say was misidentified. most of the time. I think maybe 95% of the thing was identifiable. It just got misidentified. That left 5% that was just unknown. Well, that day I saw that other 5%, and that changed my whole perspective on it. Okay, you round the corner sometimes, and everything changes, and that's what happened to me that day. What the heck was that? I don't know, but I'd like to find out.
My co-host on Dark Mirror Radio show actually had a similar experience in the UK, but it was very massive, and that it was high up enough where there was clouds going under it, but it was like darkening out the moon, so it wasn't like a shadow they're seeing. And one of them is ex-Air Force, and the other one's ex-Army, so they're very familiar with crap, that are over there. See,
I saw. I mean, what I saw was in and out of the clouds like that. It was, I could see clouds. I could see like a platform under it, but it wasn't a platform. But it was like a door or something under it, some kind of an indentation. It was huge. This thing, and I've run football fields. I know how big they are. Okay, this thing would have had trouble sitting it down on the football field.
That's what they said too. The both theirs. It makes me wonder if it is ours, though. You know what I mean? They started talking about Space Force. We were talking earlier that the military says it's 10 years ahead of us. They're probably 100, possibly even 1,000 years ahead of us. Who knows what they have?
Well, if we have that, here's my problem. Okay, if we have something like that, then the Chinese have evidently probably stolen it from us, and they have too. That worries me too to think about. Okay, because and I'm gonna say this, and I'm not trying to be racist or anything. There's not a racist bone in my body, trust me. But everything that the Chinese have gotten, they stole from somebody else.
Oh yeah, I mean,
that's just the way. That's just the way they operate. The Russians do the same thing. Okay. Everybody's stealing from everybody else. That's the way it goes, especially with, But the government is not your friend.
You look at the Chinese motorcycles; they look a lot like Harleys.
There you go. They steal everything. They're good at that. That's just the way That's the way they did the gunpowder. There's evidence they stole gunpowder from some other civilization. I forget which one it was. They've been doing that from time immemorial. they what's the good about the Chinese? They assimilate.
Yep.
They assimilate. They take things into themselves and make it part of theirs. That's what they do. That's how they operate. And what really worries me is right now there are Chinese soldiers based in Canada and probably Mexico. They probably are in Mexico too. Look at them. They were in Venezuela.
Yeah. Did you hear that the Mexican cartels admitted that they were fighting in Ukraine to sharpen up their drone skills and to use it as training? I thought that was pretty wild.
They have secret Chinese police stations inside this country.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. And then they're worried about a weather balloon that flies over. Boy, I think the fox has been in the hen house a long, long time.
Yeah, me too. A lot of sleeper agents.
All these, what really, really worries me, you got all these secret Chinese labs going on in this country.
Yeah, I heard some about that, about somebody who was working on some super virus not too long ago that got, I want to say, arrested and deported now.
Yeah, and what they could do, not just to the human company, to our water. Did you know there are certain germs, listen to this, that can be put in a water supply that will contaminate that water supply forever? And
that's horrifying.
You couldn't clean it out. I mean, you couldn't make it potable again. That water's gone. There may come a time, my friend, when the most valuable thing on planet Earth will not be gold or silver or titanium. It may be water.
Yeah. Hope that's after my time.
Not in my lifetime either. I hope not.
They say if we can't hold on for the next 25 years, that they think we'll be able to live for thousands of years with how technology's going.
There are ways to recover drinking water from the ocean. But look what they're doing to the ocean. The point is, we have contaminated this planet with plastic. That was the worst thing we ever invented, by the way.
Mm.
Plastic. They have actually found plastic in ice caves in Antarctic. Okay, you have
The
enough
Marina
plastic in your
Trench too. They found plastic in the
you
bottom of now.
you have got enough plastic in your body right now to make a small plastic spoon or fork.
I believe it.
You got plastic shards in your heart. Your system put it there. Okay.
Yep.
We have you look what's done. They are opening whales and fish and finding plastic bags in them.
It's horrible.
We have contaminated this planet completely. If we were to start right now, it might take hundreds of years to actually clean it all up. But will we never do that? No, I doubt that very much.
No. I know there are some countries now though that have these like drones that are actually like eating the plastic out. I think Japan's one of them. I want to say like Norway or Sweden also are using these drones that is actually like going around and absorbing the plastic out of the ocean. And it's like a
Oh yeah.
ridiculous amount they get every day. But you know, there's America and China. I'm sure Russia's been pretty bad at it too. We're pretty bad with pollution.
Well, it's kind of hard to clean the world up when nobody else wants to cooperate. The Chinese
Yeah,
burning, they burn coal. The Russians burn coal. Everybody's burning coal. Why should we quit? Everybody else, I mean, you're facing an uphill battle that you can't win in some ways. If everybody would get together and cooperate, but that's like, I told somebody the other day, you could have a comet heading for Earth and we could shoot up a missile and divert it, and they would still be arguing about it when it hit.
yep.
That's just the way it's going to go, you know. And you ever see that movie Greenland?
Yeah, I saw the first one. I gotta watch the second one yet.
We could face something like that. Do you think they're going to really beat anybody? I don't know if they would ever be able to even get together to hide in Greenland. I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
But mankind, I don't put a whole lot of faith in mankind.
I don't know. I think if something showed up from another galaxy next door, that we'd probably come together. But I feel like as soon as we vanquish it, we'd be right back to fighting with each other.
Yeah, it would be nice if it did. I remember something somebody said once. I can't remember who it was that said it, but it's a very interesting statement. And I think, it's something we need to understand. It's contention on it. And this is what he said. If you knew the things that I know, it would all fall apart. I think that was a cigarette smoking man from X Files. Anyway, what if that is true? What if that is true?
Right?
I already know enough. Put it this way, my friend. I already know enough that I don't sleep well at night anymore. Okay.
Same. I'm
Uh,
pretty far down the rabbit hole. When you go down, you don't come back completely.
yeah. I hold out hope, definitely. As long as you live, there's hope. But hope, is becoming a kind of a very lean commodity in this world. Put it that way.
Right? We still gotta hang on to it. I guess my last question will be: do you have any advice for any young hunters out there looking to get into the paranormal and supernatural?
Well, my best advice, and I give it to a lot of people, is you got to take things first of all in an academically sort of way. Be an academic. Look at kind of professionalism. Okay, take it that way, but don't get too deeply obsessed with it. I've had to watch that myself over the years, not to become too obsessed. Obsession can lead you down some wrong avenues. So you have to kind of keep a professional patina about it, you know. But learn. That's the main thing. Keep learning as much as possible. If I had had podcasts like this or the internet like we have now back many years ago when I spent all those long, lonely hours in the reference rooms of libraries, I would have really got somewhere. Okay, I think without a doubt. Uh, but learn all you can. Read as many eyewitness reports. Read everything about it. As we say in law enforcement, observe everything, and that's very true. You got to learn as much as possible. See everything from its different direction that you can to understand it better and to assimilate it better in your mind. That's very, very important. Don't ever stop learning. I've often said the day I stop learning is the day that will shovel dirt in my face. So that's the number one thing. Learn, keep reading, keep talking to other people. But you got to get out in the field too, you know. You got to have boots on the ground research as well, you know. And you can't just read a couple of books and say, "Oh, I'm an expert on that," because there are thousands of books you need to read. Okay, there are thousands of things and you got to, you know, to take things. Um, it's like that old saying, "All roads lead to Rome." You got to go different roads to get to your destination, and those different roads can be learning different things like anthropology, archaeology, astronomy, criminology, paranormal stuff, supernatural, folklore, legends. The list goes on and on. Things that you need to use, those different roads that you need to go down to get to your final true destination of what you want. And that's very important too. That's the way you got to roll.
Love it. Do you have any final words, or are you ready to wrap it up?
Well, I'll just say this, you know, I've had people ask me over the years, why have you had so many experiences? You know, I said, I guess I was just unlucky. I don't know. But I've had a lot of people.
Same.
Why did- It is. Why haven't I seen Bigfoot? And it took me many years to see Bigfoot, by the way. Why haven't I seen that? I said, maybe, you know, you just got to be in the right place at the right time. Maybe that's a curse. Maybe it's a gift. I don't know. But the one way that you will surely see or experience things is you get out into the field itself. That's the only way you can truly experience it. It's like learning how to ride a bicycle. You can talk about it all day until you actually sit in the seat and try to pedal. Then you start riding a bicycle. You got to look at all these kind of things. So you got to take it in that way. That's my, you know, main advice to the young people who wants to get into this. But you got to stay true to what you're doing. You know, as Shakespeare said, "Be true to yourself." You know, and you got to do that too. You know, to take it the right way and to do the things the right way. There's a right way and a wrong way to do everything, and it's much easier to do it the right way the first time without having to go back and fix it. So that's the way I always looked at it. But definitely, you know, get out and experience what you can if you're interested in it. And like I say, read books like my books and some other books that are out there. Check them out. Keep reading, keep learning. That's the main thing. Don't ever stop learning. But
Absolutely. Knowledge
so the
power.
supernatural, as a doctor of metaphysics, I will say this in the end here. Um, there is truly an unseen side of this universe. And until we realize that, we're cutting off a lot of our existence that we should not do. That is part of our existence. Just because something is not seen does not mean it does not exist. I found that out a long time ago. So let's not limit ourselves in our outlook on things. Let's keep an open mind. Don't have your mind too open where your brain falls out, but have an open mind. Okay, that's the main thing. Yeah.
Awesome. It's so true. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure anytime. And let's meet you
Uh,
over on my show one day. My channel is Hunting the Shadows, YouTube podcast channel and agency because I do a lot of paranormal consultation. I have people contact me with their paranormal problems all over the world. So if you want to call me or contact me, you can get in touch with me through DennisWCarroll.com. And my books are available on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. You just look up the author Dennis W. Carroll. Come on over to Hunting the Shadows and subscribe. Subscribe to this fellow here. He's got a great channel too. A lot of great stuff on YouTube. That is another great resource, folks.
Yes.
Don't forget about that.
Do you post on Spotify at all?
No, I haven't got into Spotify yet. That's going to be my next place to conquer. Definitely.
It's good for like I get some traffic there, but it's really good for like logging all your information too. So you know what I mean? If anything ever happened to your hard copies, you still have. That's what I love about Spotify.
I'll have to check that out.
It's always good for people like at work.
Yeah. I've been what's that another one? I think it's called Stack. Substack or something like that. I was checking that out the other day. It's a different thing. They got, I think it's sort of like a branch off the internet or something. I'm gonna have to check on it and see. But different areas like that, I definitely want to explore.
Me too. Well, thanks everybody. I'm just gonna stop the live and chat afterwards.